During a family reunion, my husband stood up and declared, "She doesn't deserve this family's name, let alone my last name." His sister gasped, covering her mouth. I held up my ring and said, "Then you won't mind if I mail this back, with the prenup clause that leaves you penniless for public humiliation." He sat down without a word. "My name's Raylene, Ray to everyone who knows me. I'm 42, live in Portland, Oregon, and until about a month and a half ago, I thought I had my life figured out. Or at least, I thought I'd made peace with the parts that didn't work perfectly. I work as a guidance counselor at Jefferson High. I love my job most days, even when teenagers tell me I don't get it. I have a modest home in the Mount Tabor neighborhood with a wraparound porch I used to sit on in the mornings with a cup of coffee and my dog, Yogi, a big golden retriever with a bigger heart. I had a husband, Nolan, who I thought I knew. Turns out I didn't know much of anything at all. The day my marriage ended didn't start like anything special. We were packing for a family reunion at Lake Chelan. I was folding Nolan's button-ups. He always liked to overdress for casual gatherings, and he was out back messing with the cooler. "Did you pack the wine opener?" he yelled through the screen door. "I always pack the wine opener," I shouted back. It was the kind of exchange you have 100 times. Familiar, domestic, harmless. Except it wasn't. See, a week before that trip, I found something. Something that changed everything. But we'll get there. Nolan and I met in the most Portland way possible, inside Powell's books. He was in the travel section, thumbing through a book about Kyoto's gardens. I was looking for something on grief counseling. I'd just lost my younger brother to a motorcycle accident a few months prior, and I was trying to understand how to keep my head above water. We bumped into each other by the end cap. He made a joke about how no one actually reads travel books anymore because of blogs. I smiled politely. He asked me out for coffee before I'd even told him my last name. We were married within 7 months. It sounds fast now. Reckless even. But back then, it felt like a second chance at happiness. I was 30, he was 37 with 2 kids, Felix and Bryony, who had lost their mom 5 years before to cancer. I wasn't trying to replace anyone. I just wanted to help build something stable again. Nolan always said I brought calm to his chaos. At the time, I wore that like a badge of honor. Now, I see it for what it was. He needed someone to hold everything together while he unraveled in peace. The reunion was Nolan's family's idea, his mother, Marianne, especially. She's the kind of woman who says things like, "It's not a family function unless someone cries," and means it. The whole extended family was there. Cousins, second cousins, half-siblings. Even his great-aunt made the trip from Walla Walla. We rented this sprawling Airbnb overlooking the lake, 10 bedrooms, fire pit, wraparound deck, and enough wine to host a vineyard. We'd only been there 24 hours before everything imploded. I hadn't said a word yet. I didn't want to cause a scene. I wanted to give him the dignity of telling them privately. But Nolan? Nolan never met a moment he couldn't make about himself. It happened Saturday evening. We were all outside, plates of grilled salmon and garlic potatoes in hand, gathered around the patio. The string lights glowed soft overhead. I was standing next to his sister, Tessa, chatting about her new Etsy venture. She makes hand-poured candles with cheeky names like Bad Decisions and Bergamot. Tessa was always good company. We never got especially close, but I never felt judged by her the way I sometimes did with Nolan's mom. She gave me that warm, ironic smile when she asked if I was surviving all the cousin introductions. Then Nolan clinked his glass with a spoon. Everyone looked up. "I just want to say something real quick," he said, swaying slightly. He had that tone half joke, half theater. The same one he used when making toasts at weddings that weren't his. "I've been thinking," he went on, "a lot about expectations. Marriage, identity, family, and I've come to a realization." I froze mid-bite. "I don't think Ray deserves this family's name," he said. "Let alone my last name." The silence was immediate. Not a gasp or a clink. Just dead quiet. Tessa's eyes went wide, her fork still suspended. Someone dropped a wine glass. Marianne's mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stood up, calm, unshaken. I slipped my ring off my finger slowly, like I'd done it 100 times. "Then you won't mind if I mail this back to you," I said, holding it between 2 fingers, along with the prenup clause that leaves you penniless for public humiliation. I set the ring down in the middle of the table. Nobody breathed. Nolan didn't say a word. Not one. And I walked back inside. Upstairs, I zipped up my overnight bag and grabbed my keys. No tears, no rage. Just this cold clarity washing over me. In the car, my hands shook a little. Not from fear, but adrenaline. I drove down the winding roads out of Chelan until I reached a little inn on the far side of the lake. It was quiet, old school, with a view of the water. I checked in under my maiden name. That night, I lay in bed with the lamp on and stared at the ceiling, thinking of all the ways I'd let myself settle for scraps. I'd always said I wanted peace. But somewhere along the line, I forgot I was allowed to leave the war zone. The next morning, Nolan called. I let it ring. Then came the texts. Can we talk? I didn't mean for it to come out like that. You're overreacting. That last one made me laugh. Out loud. I didn't reply. I just sent him a photo of the prenup document, highlighted clause and all. In the event of infidelity or deliberate public humiliation, the violating party forfeits all marital asset claims. I blocked him after that. I also texted Bryony, his daughter, who I've loved like my own since she was 15. I told her everything. About Lila. About the Dropbox folder. About the moment at dinner. She replied a few minutes later. I'm sorry. You never deserved any of this. If you need anything, I'm here. Always. She didn't even ask if it was true. Because she already knew what kind of man her father was. After I blocked Nolan, I turned my phone on silent and didn't check it for the rest of the day. I spent the next 24 hours in that and doing what I hadn't done in years. Absolutely nothing. I didn't answer work emails. I didn't fold laundry or check the weather for the week ahead. I sat on the balcony with a cup of weak hotel coffee and stared at the lake like it owed me answers. I cried a little. Not the kind of sobbing you do in a movie, but quiet, tired tears that slide down your cheeks without you noticing. The kind that say, I am tired of being strong. That night, I had a dream I was back in our kitchen, cooking chicken cacciatore. Nolan walked in, kissed me on the cheek like he always did when he was pretending everything was okay, and then Bryony appeared behind him with a suitcase and said, You can't pretend anymore, Dad. I woke up in a sweat. The next afternoon, I got a knock on the door of the inn. It was Tessa. Hair pulled back, sunglasses on, like she wasn't sure if I'd slammed the door in her face. Hi, she said. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, looking around the small room, and said, This is way nicer than that damn Airbnb. Everyone's either hungover or pretending yesterday didn't happen. I'm sure, I said, sitting on the edge of the bed. She stayed standing. I didn't know he was going to do that. I swear to God, Ray. He didn't say a word to anyone. I looked at her. Do you believe me? She nodded immediately. Yeah, I do. I mean, it's Nolan. Then why didn't you say something sooner? That made her pause. She walked over to the little desk and sat on the chair, exhaling hard. Because I didn't want to be the one to break the illusion. You seemed happy, or at least content. And I guess I thought, maybe he'd settle down. Maybe you were good for him. I swallowed. I was. You were, she said, softer. More than he deserved. Tessa looked up at me, eyes glossy. I know about Lila. He told me she was just someone from work. But I saw how he talked about her. How he lit up. I didn't want to believe it was that deep. It was. She nodded again. We sat in silence for a while. The TV was on mute. Some cooking show with a woman baking a pie none of us would ever make. Tessa turned to me. Do you want to come back and at least say goodbye to the rest of the family? I think some of them are waiting to hear your side. And I know Mom's been crying since last night. I stared at the TV. I'm not sure I care if they hear it, I said finally. But maybe I'll come. Not for Nolan. For me. I showed up later that evening, just as the sun was dipping behind the ridge. I wore jeans and a white linen shirt that didn't belong to any version of me that had to smile for anyone. When I walked into the backyard, everyone quieted. Some awkward glances, some straight-up avoidance. Marianne came up to me first. She looked older than she had 48 hours ago. Her hair hadn't been brushed. Her mascara was smudged. I want to apologize, she said. For my son. You don't have to know, I do, she cut in. Because he was raised better. And what he did was disgusting. And if I could take back every time I told you he was just passionate, I would. I nodded, not sure what to say. I love you, she added. You were the best thing to ever happen to him. Tears welled in her eyes, and I hugged her. Over her shoulder, I saw Nolan sitting alone on one of the Adirondack chairs, staring at the lake like he was the one who'd been betrayed. Later that night, I found Bryony upstairs packing her things. Hey, she said. I was hoping you'd come. We hugged for a long time. She smelled like lavender and laundry detergent, just like she used to when she was a teenager and would sneak into our bed during thunderstorms. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I wanted to tell you earlier. I just didn't want to ruin your relationship with him." She pulled back, looking me square in the eyes. "He ruined it all by himself." She looked tired, like she'd aged 10 years in 2 days. "When I was 16, she said, "I heard him yelling at my mom once. I mean, screaming. I thought it was a one-time thing. But after she passed, he changed. Like her death freed him from being decent." I blinked, stunned. "You never told me." "I didn't want to lose you too," she said. "You were the only calm I ever had in that house." I didn't realize I was crying until she handed me a tissue from her purse. "I still love you like a second mom," she said. "That doesn't change." We hugged again, and I let the tears fall freely this time. On the drive back to Portland the next morning, I felt different. Not lighter. Not free. But awake. I stopped at a gas station off Highway 97 and sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes staring at the clouds. I kept thinking about that damn Dropbox folder. The one titled April, filled with videos of Nolan in hotel rooms, making jokes I'd heard him make to me a decade ago. I kept hearing Lila's voice in one of those emails. "You're not actually going to stay with her, are you?" By the time I got home to Portland, it was already dark. I pulled into the driveway and just sat in the car with the engine running, staring at the porch light Nolan had always insisted stay on for security. I thought about turning it off. I thought about never turning it on again. When I finally stepped inside, Yogi was the first to greet me. His tail thumped against the hardwood, and he let out that soft, low whine he reserved only for me. He'd been at the neighbors since we left for Chelan. Nolan hadn't even bothered to arrange for someone to pick him up. I dropped to my knees, buried my face in Yogi's fur, and whispered, "You're the only boy I trust right now, you know that?" He licked my cheek like he understood. The house smelled stale. I hadn't been gone long, but everything felt different. The framed photo of our wedding still sat on the entryway table. I stared at it for a long while. Me in an ivory dress with sleeves I had fought the bridal shop over. Nolan in a navy suit, one hand holding mine, the other raised like he was mid-joke. Everyone said we looked so in love. But now all I could see was a man rehearsing a performance. And a woman desperate to believe it was real. 2 days later, I heard from Lila. In email. Subject line, "I'm sorry." Kind of. I almost deleted it without reading. But I didn't. I opened it sitting at the kitchen counter, coffee in one hand, the cursor hovering over the trash icon the whole time. "Ray, you don't know me, and honestly, I never wanted to know you. I know how that sounds. I just need you to understand something. I didn't know he was married when we first started talking. He told me he was separated. Said you were staying in the house until things were finalized. I believed him. He said you were sick. Mentally. That you refused to let him go. I didn't find out the truth until 2 weeks ago. I saw a photo of you two together at some work event he tagged himself in. I confronted him. He swore it was an old photo. But then I found a folder on his iCloud that he forgot to hide. That's when I realized what he really was. I know you probably hate me. I don't blame you. But I didn't want to keep silent. I'm done letting him spin lies. Lila, I read it 3 times. Then I read it out loud. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. Nolan hadn't just cheated. He'd created a whole separate narrative, complete with mental illness accusations and legal lies. He told her I was the crazy one. The one who refused to let him go. God. The worst part? I believed for years that I was lucky to have him. That night, I decided I needed to see Lila face to face. Not to scream. Not even to get an apology. I just needed to look the other woman in the eye, and not for her sake, but for mine. I found her office online. A real estate firm in Boise. I emailed her and told her I'd be in town for a day or 2 and wanted to talk. To my surprise, she said yes. So I booked a flight. Boise wasn't a place I'd ever imagined myself flying to, especially not for something like this. The airport was small, the air dry and warm, and the rental car had a faint smell of gym socks and pine air freshener. Perfect. I met Lila at a little cafe near the University District. She wore jeans, a black blazer, and barely any makeup. She looked younger than she had in the videos. Smaller, more ordinary. She looked nervous, too. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sitting down across from me. I nodded. "You look like you haven't been sleeping." She cracked a smile. "You either." We sat in silence for a few moments, both picking at the edges of our napkins. "I didn't come here to accuse you," I said. or blame you. I'm not that woman. I know, but I needed to see you. She looked me straight in the eyes. He lied to both of us. Yeah, I said. But you believed him a little too easily. She didn't flinch. I wanted to believe him. That's the truth. I didn't want to think I was the type of woman who'd get involved with a married man. So I didn't look too hard. I appreciated her honesty. Did he love you? I asked. I think Nolan only loves himself. I believe that too. Back in Portland, I finally contacted my lawyer. Suzanne, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with a voice like gravel and zero patience for men who think charm is a legal strategy. Prenup's airtight, she said after looking it over. He'll try to fight it, but there's no judge in Multnomah County who's going to side with a man who publicly humiliated his wife and left a digital paper trail. Good, I said. I want it to sting. You want the house? I don't know yet. Then don't decide now. Wait until you're sure. Grief makes people do stupid things. I've seen women give up beachfront property just to get away. I liked Suzanne. She reminded me of who I used to be before I tried so hard to make things work with someone who didn't deserve me. Then came the letter from Nolan. Mailed to my house. In his handwriting. Postmarked 3 days after I blocked him. Ray, I don't know what to say that you'd believe. Maybe nothing. Maybe you don't care anymore. But I wasn't always lying. I did love you. Maybe not the way you wanted, but the way I could. You kept us together. You held my kids when they cried. You put up with my crap. You forgave things no one else would. And I hated that. I hated needing someone. I wanted to hurt you before you left me first. I know I failed. And I'll have to live with that. I'm sorry. Nolan, I read the letter 3 times and then set it on fire in the backyard. Because it wasn't for me. It was for him. For his guilt. For his conscience. And I'm not in the business of carrying other people's shame anymore. A week after I burned Nolan's letter, Suzanne called me again. He's trying to challenge the prenup, she said. Claims emotional duress at the time of signing. Says he felt pressured into it. I almost laughed. Of course he did. She continued, we're filing a motion to strike it down before it even gets to a hearing. I'm also collecting witness statements and digital records. Any chance you still have that Dropbox folder? Backed up on 2 flash drives, I said. 1 for you. 1 for court, just in case. Atta girl. I hung up the phone feeling something unfamiliar, excitement. This wasn't about punishing Nolan. Not really. It was about reclaiming the narrative. For too long, he'd told the story of me, of us, in whatever way suited him. Now, I'd be the one telling it. Loudly. Clearly. Without shame. The day of the court appearance, I wore a navy pantsuit. Simple. Sharp. No jewelry except for a pair of pearl studs I bought myself the week after I left Chelan. Nolan showed up with a lawyer who looked like he'd been plucked off a billboard, tan, smug, probably gave discounts for bachelor parties. He wouldn't look me in the eye. Good. The judge reviewed the prenup. Reviewed the printed email exchanges. Reviewed the public statements Nolan had made, including one particularly bold social media post he made 2 days after I moved out. New chapter. Sometimes people grow apart. Sometimes they just fake being together until someone breaks the illusion. I'm done faking. I remembered seeing that post. I remembered how it stung. Now it just looked like evidence. His lawyer tried to argue that the clause was too harsh. That the financial penalty was disproportionate to the act. Suzanne didn't even flinch. He signed it. He violated it. Case law supports enforcement. After 2 hours, the judge ruled in my favor. Full enforcement of the prenup. Nolan forfeited any claim to the house, my pension, or shared investments. I kept the property, the dog, the accounts, everything I'd earned. When the judge read the verdict, Nolan looked like he might say something. Then he didn't. He just stood there, mouth slightly open. Not shocked. Not angry. Just stunned. As if the consequence had finally landed. 3 weeks later, I listed the house, not because I had to, but because I wanted a clean slate. It sold within days. Cash buyer. Full ask. I took Yogi and moved into a smaller place, mid-century, single level, with a little herb garden in back and a clawfoot tub that made me feel like an old Hollywood starlet every time I soaked in it. One morning, I woke up to an email from Bryony. Hey Ray, Dad's been trying to get in touch with me. I'm not answering. Just wanted to say I'm proud of you. I'm thinking of moving to Portland. Maybe we can start a weekend coffee tradition? Love, I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. But the revenge? The real one? That came slowly. Subtly. Elegantly. It came in the form of a feature article in Portland Living, a local lifestyle magazine that was doing a piece on women reinventing themselves after major life changes. A former student, now a freelance journalist, pitched my name. She remembered how I'd helped her through the death of her mother when she was 16. Said I was the most emotionally intelligent woman I've ever met. The interview was honest, not sensational. I spoke about rebuilding, about learning to put myself first, about walking away from someone who didn't value my voice. I didn't name Nolan. I didn't have to. Everyone knew. The article went semi-viral in town. Shared dozens of times. Parents at my school stopped me in the hallway. Old friends I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. One afternoon, I got a text from Tessa. Just saw the article. You looked beautiful in that photo. He's been sulking ever since it came out. I think he finally realized you were the one who made him worth anything. Cheers to public reminders. And yeah, that was satisfying. Not because it hurt him, but because the truth was finally louder than his lies. The last time I saw Nolan in person was at a downtown farmer's market. I was holding a bouquet of sunflowers. He was alone, standing by a stand selling homemade jerky. He looked smaller, thinner, like someone who hadn't been sleeping well. Our eyes met briefly. I gave him a nod, polite but cold. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but I kept walking. Yogi trotted beside me, tail wagging, ears up. I didn't look back. These days, I sit on my new porch in the mornings with my coffee, just like I used to, but now it's quiet in a different way. Not the silence of walking on eggshells, the peace of knowing nothing and no one is pulling me under anymore. The peace of choosing myself and meaning it. The revenge wasn't rage. It wasn't screaming. It wasn't getting even. It was walking away with my dignity intact and making damn sure the whole world knew I did. And that, my friend, is how I mailed back a ring and walked away with everything else.